Yellowstone Universe makes a return this weekend with the second season of 1923, the prequel and sequel to 1883. Let's talk about everything you need to know before watching season 2. That's right, 1923, which stars Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, acts as both a sequel and a prequel in the Yellowstone universe. And our first season left us off in some crazy situations with all of our characters that you need to keep in mind before watching episode 1. Harrison Ford plays Jacob Dutton, who is the brother of Tim McGraw's character from 1883. And after a lethal attack by Banner Creighton, episode 3 of the first season of 1923, he's recovering from multiple shot wounds. Helen Mirren plays his wife, Cara Dutton, who is responsible for everything on the ranch while he is down and out. And as we saw at the end of the last season, because everything is getting so severe and people are coming for the Dutton Ranch, she has reached out to her nephew, Spencer Dutton, played by Brandon Sklenar, to ask him to stop hunting big game in Africa and come home to protect the family ranch. How big of a badass Spencer Dutton is as he's hunting things like lions in Africa. And while he is doing that, and that is his job, he is being called back home to Montana. But that's not the only thing he is doing. Along his travels, he fell in love and found a wife named Alexandra, who is played by Julia Schlafer. After reading a letter from Cara Dutton pleading for him to come back home to protect the ranch, they start their journey back home to Montana. And along the way, they come into contact with her ex-fiance along a cruise ship, and they duel it out with some swords, which ends up with them being separated. That is where we will find them in the beginning of the season, and from what I have heard, the majority of the season will actually see them separated, trying to find their way back to each other. We also have Jack Dutton, who is the nephew of Jacob Dutton, played by Harrison Ford, and while he was alongside Jacob Dutton in that gunfight earlier in the season, he is back to full recovery, helping Cara Dutton try to protect their ranch. And while he is doing everything he can to protect the ranch, he has some things going on at home as well with his wife, Elizabeth Stratford. Unfortunately, she suffered a miscarriage in the first season. Now, while the majority of the story does focus on the Duttons, we also have a character named Tiona Rainwater, and if you recognize the name, that is because this character is a descendant of Thomas Rainwater from the Yellowstone series. This character went through hell in the first season. She was in a corrupt Indian boarding school, and at the end of last season, we saw her escape, and she is currently on the run. Now, the last biggest fact you need to know going into season 2, and just like every Dutton story we have gotten so far, is that the bank has refused to finance the ranch going into the winter. Season 2 is going to focus largely when winter hits Montana, which is always a bad sign, but the bank has refused to finance them, which is where all of these people are coming in trying to claim their land. And one of those people is a character named Donald Whitfield, played by the great Timothy Dalton, and he has teamed up with Banner Creighton, who we met throughout the season, and is responsible for Jacob Dutton's injuries to try to take the Dutton Ranch. And as we saw in season 1, and as we have seen in the lead up to season 2, that is where Spencer Dutton comes in. He is a force to be reckoned with. His name is basically legendary at this point. He is not a